everybody, welcome back to the Redneck Racing channel. Today's video is going to be what you guys have all been waiting for. We're finally going to be putting an engine back in the 81 Camaro Nightmare. So we're in the new shop. Well, yeah, that's been in a previous video, and yeah, you guys have seen that before. Anyways, there's the car, there's the engine, and there's the hoist, and we're going to try and put it in tonight, maybe tomorrow. It's Tuesday right now, and there is not bracket racing, test and tune on Friday, and maybe it'll be running and ready to go. We might actually have it running by tomorrow, honestly, because it'll be in tonight, not hooked up probably, but we should be able to get the engine into the car and bolted to the transmission tonight. And whatever else.
Tomorrow will be a bunch of piddly stuff, just fighting with random fun wires and all sorts of stuff.
Well, at least be trying to start it tomorrow.
If not, it'll be Thursday or Friday.
Right. But yeah, hopefully it'll be at the track on Friday. So that's our goal. Stay tuned. So step one of throwing her in the car is to make sure you got the flywheel and the clutch on. I believe in a previous video we had shown how to use a clutch alignment tool, or how to make one of your own. We actually have one this time.
This one actually came with this when I first bought this like forever ago.
So that just goes to show it's always a good idea to save your clutch alignment tools, because
you'll lose them.
Most likely, yeah. As you guys can probably tell from looking at the front of this engine here, something's missing. And that would be the alternator, which is on the bench over there. And the reason for that is the electric water pump that we have will not take the stock alternator bracket. There's normally a bolt that goes in right about here on a factory water pump, and it goes in here and up here in this bolt. And we only have one of those bolts anymore. So what we got is an aftermarket alternator bracket, which would work, except it doesn't like our aftermarket electric water pump, because that's just how aftermarket parts work. It goes on here like right about like this. It sticks out a ways like that. This up here goes into that hole, and then these two go into the two in the water pump right there. The only problem is it sits the alternator way too close to the lower rad hose. So it's definitely going to hit on this. We basically need to take the same bracket and extend the swivel more, so the whole alternator will just pivot up out of the way more. Basically what we think we're going to do is make a different bracket out of steel or something else that we have laying around. This is aluminum. We'd just weld more onto it, but we can't weld aluminum. Basically the alternator just needs to swing more on this. So we're going to try and do that later once it's in the car. The other option that we discussed is putting it on this side and then figuring out what's going to go on with the power steering later. Except this head is a little bit more that way than the other head, just because that's cylinder number 1. The other head is back here, this head's forward, and that makes the pulleys not line up at all. So that's where we're at with the alternator. We haven't had the alternator on in any of the videos where we were putting the engine together and we said it was like done. The alternator wasn't on. And that's why. We're trying to figure out how we're going to bracketry-atize it with the different water pump and the different brackets and all the different aftermarket stuff. Not aftermarketing together very well. So Peter's finishing up with the clutch here, and then we are going to be ready to drop this in the car. Alright guys, we got the motor in, or almost in. We just gotta, we're bolting in the tranny bolts right now and then just gotta set it down on the motor mounts. As you saw in the time lapse, I'm sure, we took the front crash bar, or the front whatever that thing is, off. It was just 8 bolts holding it in, and that allowed us to get the cherry picker to shoot her on in a lot nicer. So, Peter's gonna cinch down the tranny. I'm gonna have to go and try and discover where the motor mount bolts are, because
Were they in that box?
no, they were not in that box, or the other box, or the other box.
All it was in there was headlight and sun guidance.
No, they could be in the trunk. Alright, well, I'm gonna go on an adventure and see if I can find these things. Alright everybody, we basically got the motor in, so now it's time to start wiring everything and plumbing up the fuel and coolant lines and everything. I'm working on wiring. I'm gonna pretend I didn't see most of it and just run the 2 other wires that I have to run to get the electric fan and the electric water pump. Plus I have to fix the one for the fuel pump, which I'm pretty sure was on this switch, because this was on there and it looks like something got pulled out, and it looks like this was the other end of the fuel pump wire, and it looks like somebody just pulled it out, or it got kicked out, one of the two. So what we're going to wind up doing is we're going to run the distributor and the fuel pump on the same switch, because that'll be easier. Alright guys, we got the wiring situation figured out. I'm in the process of wiring up this relay here. Basically what's going on here is we got, these are, I need to find another self-tapper for that relay, but it's going to go right there. And essentially the story with these is we got 2 signal wires, the 2 blue wires coming in. I don't know which is which. It's just going to be a surprise when we flip the switches in there and figure out which turns on the water pump and which turns on the fan. It's not going to be that big of a deal. So, we're coming along here pretty good. It is now Thursday. It doesn't look like we're going to be racing tomorrow. A, because the car is not going to be ready, and B, because it's just supposed to rain all day. We just finished self-tappering the fan into the top of the radiator. We'll get something on the bottom later.
I got a sizzle fan bracket onto there.
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
Oh, come on. There. We couldn't find a plug for that at O'Reilly's, so
that's kind of, yeah.
Yeah, this will just sit down in here like that somewhere with some.
And then what's the other one? You need a ground yet?
Yeah, I don't have a ground made.
Okay.
But we're gonna put this fender on before we do any of the grounds, because there is a ground, which is this.
That, yep, that right bolts to the fender.
So that'll go to the fender. Here's the ground for the water pump. That'll go right here. Oh man, that might be a little bit small too. No, maybe not. So all the grounds are just going to go to the fender right here for water pump, fan, and then this is right to the battery ground. So for those of you guys who don't know how relays work, basically all the big juice, it comes in right here and comes out right here, and then you just have exciter wires running to switches in the car. That's a brief...
It's the exact same deal as the starter.
Yes.
It's like, that's a perfect example.
Except the starter requires an entire solenoid.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of juice that goes through there.
Yep.
There is actually just mini solenoids in here. That's all these really are. We got that all wired up. Now the only juice we have drawing inside the car is for the fuel pump. And that little fuel pump only pulls an amp. 1 amp. So it's just the fuel pump and the gauge lights. And that's the only power run into the car. Alright guys, so it is Friday afternoon. We're still working on the car. We're not going racing. That got canceled. It's been raining on and off all day. Progress is being made. The alternator's almost figured out. We got inner fenders on. This side is completely rusted where the battery tray is supposed to go, so it's going to sit up more like that. But we're going to have to just hold it up with the outer fender. We do have a coolant reservoir for it too, so that'll be cool. And that's going to be the new battery tray, because that one's junk and we already have it set up to have the battery over here. So we're just going to leave the battery over here.
Alrighty, we're back. Basically, a lot has changed a little bit. I don't know where Adam left off here. He said the inner fenders were on. We got the outer fenders back on. We readjusted the door. We're just going ham right now. Also, check out this terrible, ugly, like, yeah, that's bad. And you can see my cutting job was great with the Sawzall, so that's perfect. But it fits, so I'm happy. Enough.
Does it get it far enough away from the hose?
It does. Just barely, but it does.
Alright.
As long as we get the right size belt, we should be good.
What do you actually wind up cutting this out with?
A drill. Temp gauge, that's done.
Really?
Yeah, I finished that. I gotta do this.
You done with all the torque and the lug nuts?
Lug nuts are done.
Fender grounds, I'm gonna cross that off. That'll be done in 5 minutes. Oil pressure get shift up?
No, I have to do that.
That?
No.
That might be a pain.
No, I have a plan for that.
Okay.
I just have to do it. It's a bolt and a bunch of washers. Because I'm going to try that first before we drill that hole out.
This ain't no first start.
It doesn't have a carburetor on it.
Or a distributor.
First, fire stuff.
So are we just watching for fire?
Basically.
See if the fan turns on.
Now, I gotta turn the power on.
Well, this is exactly how I would expect this to go.
I'll put it into gear just in case.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
Just in case of whatever switch I have accidentally decided.
Okay.
Hit the starter and you
Try it.
go through a friggin' wall. Holy schmoly. Yeah.
Blowing it that away.
Yeah, okay.
Dude, that thing.
I'm gonna bump the water pump too on.
Okay.
It made noises.
Yeah.
This should be fuel pump.
Yep.
Yep. Just spilled gas all over my alternator.
I turned the windshield light dude, I'm really scared of what happened.
Do it. Yeah.
No! Alright.
And the passenger gets a squeegee.
Well, we know it will bump, the engine will actually turn over, right? Yep, that happened accidentally once last night.
Remember Pete tried to run me over once by hitting the starter that was in gear.
That was completely accidental.
Alright guys, we pretty much have everything set up except it needs water in the radiator. I'm pretty sure that is the very last thing. We're gonna roll this out, fill it up with water, and we'll be back when we're trying to actually finally start it up.